Someone snaps their fingers outside my window every night at 3 a.m. The neighbors warned me not to look at him. I heard the snapping the first night I moved into my new house. My neighbors had told me earlier that I should never, under any circumstances, look at the man. If I did, I would sorely regret it. When I asked them what happened if you looked at him, they didn't say a word. Instead, they just looked at each other and the husband shook his head. I should have taken their advice. By the time I was in bed that night, I had already forgotten about their warning. Until it started. I could hear the snapping, echoing from somewhere down the road, and I had forgotten to close my blind. Stupid mistake. I was just about to get out of bed and shut the curtains when suddenly the next snap came from right outside the bedroom window. I let out a startled cry. The house was a good 20 feet from the public sidewalk and separated by a garden gate and then a row of bushes. Somehow he had cleared that distance in less than a second. I covered my face with the pillow and curled up into a ball. A whispered prayer escaped my lips, and I hoped that God was stronger than whatever was outside. The thing started walking back and forth, going just past my house each time. His snapping started out slow and rhythmic, but got faster and faster each time until it reached a feverish speed. As they sped up, the snaps grew louder, much louder than any sound a human snap could make, to the point that they rattled the window glass in its pain and drowned out every other sound. I began to shake and shouted for Jesus to protect me. It was growing increasingly difficult to lie there defenseless in bed as the snaps grew louder. Part of me wanted desperately to jump out of bed and face whatever monster was outside, but it wouldn't stop. It just got louder and louder until my eardrums felt like they were about to burst. I tried stuffing the corners of my pillow down my ears, but it did nothing to quiet the incessant roar. Then just like that, there was silence. The noise stopped so suddenly that it was almost startling. From outside, a gravelly reptilian voice said, not in a whisper but in a low and quiet tone, "Good night." I can't put into words how frightening the experience was, but I had just bought the house. There was no way I could move out already. I got up without opening my eyes and shut the window curtains. It took 4 more hours to fall asleep, and even then only because the sun was starting to rise and the world felt safe again. After a while, I developed certain strategies for coping with my nightly visitor. I asked around, and some people in the neighborhood let me know that you could help drown out the noise by leaving a fan on through the night. It sounded dumb at first, but I was desperate enough to try anything at that point, and sure enough, it worked. The snapping was still loud but endurable, and after a week, I was sleeping through the whole thing. I started to tie the curtain shut and add a cardboard wall around the window so that there was no way I'd be able to accidentally look at him. I even put a tripwire in front of the window so I'd know if anyone tried removing it. I was determined. I wasn't going to move out of this beautiful place just because of one weird person. After implementing my nighttime defense strategies, my life started getting back to normal. I settled into my new job and even became friends with a couple co-workers. One was a goofy guy named Tyler who's stupid in a fun-to-be-around kind of way, and the other was a beautiful girl I was flirting with named Amanda. I thought we'd all be friends for life. I just didn't realize the horrifying reality that it was about to get cut short. I had the dumb idea to invite both of them over for a little party at my place. We started off with board games, pizza, and beer, then more and more beer. And it didn't take long until Tyler wandered into my room. "What the hell is this stuff in your room?" Tyler shouted. I froze. I had gone so long without waking up at 3 a.m. that I had half forgotten about the thing that roamed the neighborhood. I looked down at my watch. It was 2:55 a.m. Crap. I had let time get away from me. I got up and ran into my bedroom and Amanda followed me. "Don't touch it. Get away from the window," I shouted at Tyler, who was peeling back the box on the windowsill. He and Amanda stared at me with their mouths gaping open, and I knew I had to explain myself. I told them all about the thing that comes by every night at 3 a.m. and how it was incredibly dangerous to look at him. I expected them to think I was crazy, but that wasn't exactly how they reacted. "Whoa," Tyler gasped. "So, like, your neighborhood is haunted?" "Well, yeah, I guess technically, but it's not a huge deal as long as you stay away from that window," I said. "So, like, you've never even seen the guy that does this?" he asked me. I shook my head. "How do you know it isn't just some random loser playing a prank?" "Trust me, if you heard it, you would know that it isn't anything human," I told him. He looked at me with a flash of excitement. "What time is it?" he asked. I checked my watch again. 2:58. I stuttered and then looked at him in terror. I did not want them to witness the snapping. "We can't be in here. Let's go back into the living room," I blurted and tried to herd the two out of my room, but Tyler wouldn't budge. "No effing way, man. Now that we're here, I want to hear this thing. I'm staying." I could tell he meant it, and I didn't know what I could do to convince him to leave. Before I could even think of something else to say, I heard it. The snaps were starting from down the street. "He's coming," I said mostly to myself. Tyler and Amanda fell silent and strained to listen for the sound of his arrival. "I don't hear," Amanda started to say, but she was cut off by the sudden sound of snapping that came from right outside the window. I groaned. He was here. Tyler, who was facing the window, fell backwards onto the floor. "Holy crap," he giggled. "It's real." I didn't like the look I saw on Tyler's face. He was eyeing the window up and down like it was a roller coaster he was about to ride, a plunge into adventure that he was ready to take. "Come over here, Tyler. It's not safe by the window," I said, but my words were lost on him. "Tyler, get over here," Amanda yelled. The snapping started to get louder and Tyler's visage changed from excited to afraid. However, that glimmer of adventure still shone in his eye. "Why can't we look at him again?" Tyler shouted over the growing noise. He started to move hesitantly towards the rattling window. I tried to shout back an answer, but the snapping was already deafening and it drowned out any sound of my voice. The fan was turned off. Amanda covered her ears and crouched down to her knees. I could tell by her face that she was crying. For a second, I bent down to comfort her, and when I looked up, I just barely caught Tyler's mouth moving. I'm not the best lip reader, but I could tell he said something like, "I think I'm going to open the window." as he reached to pull the box off the windowsill. I sprang up from the floor across the room towards him and shouted with all my might for him to stop, but it was too late. Just as I was about to reach him, Tyler undid the curtains and he laid eyes on the terrible thing outside. I shielded my own eyes with my elbow just in time, but that didn't stop me from hearing Tyler's screams, because as soon as Tyler opened the curtains, the snapping stopped. The thing outside the window let out a deep animal moan of pleasure, and then all we could hear was a mortifying, blood-curdling wail. It came from Tyler. After a few seconds, the screaming subsided, and I hesitantly decided to open my eyes. Tyler was sitting in the corner, slumped over like a drunk. His mouth was turned up in a slight smile and drool poured out of the corner. "Tyler," I began to talk to him. He looked over when I said his name, and I saw that his eyeballs were all white. They didn't pupils or irises, not even any veins. They were just pure white, like two cue balls stuck in his skull. He smiled wider. "Tyler, are you all right?" I asked. "I'm fine," he said dryly as he stood up. I looked at the watcher and he has helped me truly see. He took a step toward us. "I think you two should look. I promise you won't regret it." He took another step forward and reached a hand out in our direction. "Just take a quick peek. I won't tell anyone." At that moment, a dull thud came from the window. Tyler went on talking and staggering towards us. I put a protective arm out in front of Amanda in a feeble attempt at shielding her from whatever terribleness had entered the body of our friend. "You should take a look. It's not so bad. It's not like what they've told you." There was another thud against the window. It sounded like something was pounding on the glass. "I promise I wouldn't lie to friends," Tyler said. Thud. "Do I look like I'm hurt?" I wanted to answer that he did look hurt, but I knew it wouldn't do much. There was something very wrong with him. Looking out the window had changed him. "Tyler, what is that thing doing?" I asked him tentatively as I took a cautious step backward. Thud. "Who?" Tyler asked me. "That thing outside. Oh, he's banging his head on the glass. He says that once someone looks at him, he's allowed to come in." As he said those words, there was another thud and the glass made a cracking noise. I turned around to look at Amanda and said the last words I would ever speak to her. "Get out now!" She took off running and I followed close after. Behind us I heard Tyler call out, this time in his normal voice, as if the real Tyler had fought his way out of the prison that was his mind. By the time I got through the front door, Amanda was already out of sight. Her car wasn't in the driveway, so I assumed she made it to safety. My car was in the garage and the keys were up in my room, so I ran away on foot. New screams and the sounds of tearing flesh echoed out into the night as I crossed the lawn and scampered down the sidewalk. There was so much adrenaline in my system that running was not difficult, even though I was severely out of shape. I ran until my frantic legs carried me to a public place, a fast food restaurant that I had never noticed before. Thank God it was open. I burst inside and collapsed onto the sticky tile floor where a worker had just mopped. He looked slightly annoyed, but not in the least bit shocked. I guess the graveyard staff at a fast food place see a lot of crazy shit. As soon as I regained my breath, I pulled out my phone and called 911. I told the operator that someone had broken in and attacked my friend. I hoped there was still a chance for Tyler, but in my gut I knew that it was over for him. The operator asked where I lived, and when I gave her the address, her tone of voice completely changed. "Did he look out the window?" she asked. I guess emergency services was already aware of the thing that wandered the neighborhood. "Yeah, he did," I sniffled. "Well, I'm sorry, sir, but there's nothing we can do for your friend. We will try to recuperate most of your belongings in the morning, but you cannot go back to that house. Do you have somewhere else you can stay?" she asked. I was speechless. There was nothing they could do. What was that thing that went snapping outside my window every night, and how was it so terrifying that even 911 wouldn't mess with it? Eventually, I lied to her and said I could stay at a relative's house, but truthfully, I had nowhere to go. My only two friends in the area were Tyler and Amanda, one of whom was literally in the belly of the beast and the other wasn't answering my calls. I eventually moved to a new neighborhood with a good job and new friends. Things are going great, but I'm starting to get a little worried. My next-door neighbors just called and said that they want to come over to discuss some community guidelines. They said it has something to do with locking your doors every time there's a full moon. I swear I can't take this stuff anymore. Why can't I just find a decent place to live?